thing isn't going to work if I don't plug it in. Turn it on. The worst, though, Mrs. Hoffman, if you're not plugged in, that's bad. But the worst when it says plugged in, not charging. That's not a good way to live your life, okay? So we want to be plugged in and charging. So we know run in such a way that you may win. And you got to change your mood first before you can perform well. What's the definition of mental toughness in this class? That is true from motivation, particularly what we talked about last week. In a general sense, that's very precise to what we hit last week. In a very general sense, Jason? Yes, being able to change your emotional state. What we're calling mental toughness. 4 energy states, what are they? High positive, high negative, low positive. Well, I wouldn't have minded if you guys couldn't remember the negatives, but you better remember them. Yeah, pretty easy, but all right. Attitude we hit a couple weeks ago. Emotion follows thought. So we can think and end up in the right place. And the essence of mental toughness in reference to attitude is my attitudes and emotions are intimately connected, and I assume full responsibility for my attitudes. This is so liberating. If you don't hear it this way, I just want to help you steal from Steve Doty, turn the cat around, okay? Because it's not like, oh, you're responsible for your attitudes and you're going to fry if you have a bad. Well, we could find scriptures that basically say that. That's true. Okay? We know where grumblers end up. But it is so liberating when you realize you have the freedom to control your own attitude no matter what anybody else does or doesn't do. Nobody has power over you. That's a great way to live your life. If other people can push buttons and change your attitude, they have the power to manipulate you and control you. So it's incredibly liberating to understand that God has wired us in this way where we can assume full responsibility for our attitudes. Last week talked about motivation, purpose, and passion. The ultimate purpose, I still sometimes have a challenge in figuring out what that is, what that looks like. I'm still on that journey. But I can tell you this, the second half of this, love the battle more than the other. Whatever you're in, do it and have fun doing it. Any of you guys do any play frames last week? Find ways to have fun in the middle of routine tasks? Okay? I hope some of this stuff is you carry with you a little bit. I'll say this. Mr. J. Wilson isn't here, and I know he doesn't listen to this, so I'm safe unless you guys tell him. I have to be honest. When I think about my dad, fun is not the first word that comes to my mind, okay? He's the absolute most driven, hardest worker I've ever met in my life. But fun doesn't exactly, that just doesn't jump off the page. But I will say this. The guy has fun. Jim, you've traveled with him some. And one thing he's always encouraged me in my life, and I hear him encourage my boys, he's like, oh yeah, hey, remember to have fun while you're doing it. It is true. His fun looks different than mine. I'll admit that, okay? But he finds ways to have fun. Anybody who's going to be successful and keep going and be driven and work hard consistently, you're going to have fun. You're going to find ways to enjoy the journey. Jesus himself, I love the picture. In your right hand, there are pleasures forevermore. Okay? The joy of gladness above your companion. Joy anointed. So we have fun doing what you do for the Lord. Tonight we're working on visualization. What you see is what you get. So basic strategies, we're going to learn to use visualization to provide energy and relaxation through control of emotional states. Visualization improves performance through mental rehearsal. So we're going to talk about just mentally prepping for things that are important before you do them. And visualization also improves memory and enhances creativity, the ability to identify and solve problems. So these are basic strategies we're hitting tonight. As man thinks within himself, so he is. Everybody Everybody knows this one, right? I've heard people say, the me I see is the me I'm going to be. I think that's fair. I sometimes add eventually, because there is time delay sometimes. But the me you see is the me you're going to be. Evoking mental images leads to physical changes. So we're talking about emotional state, which has a direct impact on our performance because our body changes in reference to our emotional state. Let's see. The ladies' advance is at Beartooth Christian Camp. Is that right, Scott Schweitz? Ladies' advance, do you know? Is that? He doesn't know where the ladies' advance is. How would he know? Why am I asking Scott? Well, the reason I'm asking Scott is because many years ago, back when I was college age, we had a college group up there at Beartooth Christian Camp. And Scott was one of my roomies, however that works. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, I hear this, "Help! Help! Help me!" I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" I woke up. I did at the last minute get permission to use this from Scott. Yeah, it has a point. And I was like, what's? And so woke him up, and he was. I don't remember the particulars. I remember the sound because that's what I was hearing. But you were having a nightmare of some sort, and you were trying to run away from something, and basically your feet were like almost like you were running in concrete or something, or cement, right? And couldn't. It was something like that. Is that about what you remember it? Okay. Nobody can hear you. You're running for help. Someone's chasing you. You can't move. How many of you ever had your version of something like that? Okay, most of us have experienced that, okay? I shouldn't tell this because I'm not Daniel. Dreams don't mean anything, but I'm not even going to say it. Because if it ever comes true, you guys will get me in a court of law and say, you followed that visualization thing and carried it out. It has to do with driving. So it's not criminal, it's not intentional criminal activity. Let's put it that way. But the point here is the chemistry of billions of cells in our body change in response to something that isn't real. It was imagined. I use a nightmare as a very extreme version of that, but that's not real. What Scott was imagining was not real, but he felt it was, and his body and all of those things. Sometimes I've woken up like in cold sweats from your body changes based off of what you are perceiving as reality. So what we want to do is figure out how to get these spiritual laws working for us. Each internal energy state has corresponding mental imagery, and you can move from state to state by evoking the proper imagery through visualization. So it's one more tool for controlling your emotional state and thus your performance. And it's a very important tool for when you, need high performance particularly, but also actually when you need to relax, and we'll talk about that as we go. I don't think I like the order that these pop up in necessarily, but we'll just hit them in the order they come up. High positive images at your best. We'll spend a little time on, we'll give you a chance to think about a couple of these tonight, but you need to have there's some images that you have when you are at your best. Okay, superb, focused performance, unrestrained, yet masterful, okay, and in control. High negative images are violated or harmed, seeking revenge, getting even, attacking, angry, irate. When I was putting this together, I was thinking, I can't think of these kind of images, and I don't want to. Okay? I thought, it's like, if I don't have those, but some people, if you're constantly a high negative performer, you've probably subconsciously visualize the way you're acting in certain situations when you're mad or whatever. Don't want to have those. Low positive, relaxed, unhurried, calm, pleasant, easygoing. This one's kind of easy for me. And a side note, I remember I was on an airplane trip somewhere. Let's see, I don't remember what month we moved here, in the month of August maybe. And I think that December I went to the men's retreat in South Carolina. And on the airplane, I was closing my eyes, just relaxing and thinking. And the picture that I went to was a relaxing picture in where the place we live in Belgrade. And I was like, oh, now I know I actually live here. Okay, because that's where my mind went. But there are we all have relaxing, comforting images. I hope that we do. If we don't, we want to develop some of those that you can put yourself in the right emotional state. And then low negatives, depressed or bored, afraid or tired, hopeless, powerless, victimized. Again, those images are not things you want to hang on to. You want to be able to shift out of those, because if you stay there, if that's what you visualize, the me you see is the me you're going to be. We want to key in on this, on the positive side tonight. Changing emotions through imagery is nothing new. We know this. Writers do it all the time. Vivid scenes which induce feelings in the reader. I have told this story before. My sister Lori, when she used to read her, I think they were Nancy Drews. They might have been Agatha Christie's. I don't remember the age we were, but I do remember I wasn't really supposed to go down the hallway, but I'd sneak down the hallway when I knew she was reading this. She'd be on the floor with her up against the bed reading, and when her toes started to wiggle, I would pounce. Because I knew that was the scary part. And sorry, Izzy, you're like, Mr. Luke Wilson, what are you doing? Hey, you got to have fun in what you do. That's from last week. So hey, find ways to have fun. But what is going on through what she's reading? There's emotional changes, and when I could spot those emotional changes, that's the time to take full advantage of that. Motion pictures, television are even more involving because they can display images as well as invoke them. Now I'll use myself as a bad example. I am infamous for crying during, I want to say tear jerkers, but sometimes they don't even have to be tear jerkers. Yeah, Mrs. Hoffman, you're picking on me. And every time I've ever watched a Old Yeller type of movie, anything like that, I cry. Guys, Hallmark are the dumbest thing. You watch one Hallmark, you watch them all, and I watch a Hallmark movie and I still cry. So Julie sometimes be like, how you doing over there, Luke? Anyways, you understand, okay? Imagery has an effect on your emotions. So we want to create our own mental movies for controlling our energy states. And you got to make your own imagery because people do respond to different things. Okay? Some people might watch Old Yeller and think, glad we rid the world of one more rabid dog. Okay? I don't know, but some people might be pest control or, that kind of, I don't know. So you got to make your own, okay, for you to be able to be in the right emotional state. So these are three important things. Okay? You want to have an image of when you're relaxed. Okay? And this is important because when you need to be able to relax and into the high positive, you need to have an image there that you can go to. We'll work on developing that one a little bit. You need to have one for when you're energized. So when you need to summon up energy as it's required. Okay? I'm sure that you guys are probably like me, and some days you're naturally more energetic than others. But some days you need to do really important, big things when you're not naturally feeling energized. There's things you need to be able to do to get yourself into that state, and then your finest hour when you really got to hit it out of the park. So each image must be strengthened and intensified by involving all your senses so that when you summon it, the effect is overwhelming. Okay, this is actually a really good lesson for me because I am wired as an engineer, and I actually have to slow down, and I don't naturally go artistic. I don't naturally summon up all of my senses. I'm like, give me the black and white photo. And so this is really important. It's beneficial. So a relaxation image. This is one I'm going to have you guys work with me in a second on. So recall a time when you were totally at ease, secure, and unworried. So I'm going to go back over 20 years now. after I had testicular cancer and chemo was zero fun, got through it, I felt crummy for an extended period of time afterward. And somewhere around my birthday, Julie and I went to Chico, and she was so helpful to me through that whole process, and just comfort. It felt good to be alive, and it felt good to be with her. It was just really relaxing. So I have a picture in my mind. When I want to, I can go there. Okay? And so I want you to think of one that you have for yourself, okay? So I'll give you a minute and think about the time that you felt really relaxed, secure, comfortable. You can close your eyes if that helps. And I'm going to say a few more things with your eyes closed. So involve all the senses. So let's just kind of bring in details one by one. Can you smell some of the smells at that place? I have to close my eyes to do this with you, and then can you feel it? Anything where you can feel if you're, what the sand on the beach felt like, or whatever it is for you. You hear it, hear the sounds around. Touch it and taste it. So you want to be able to bring these things in. Okay? And sometimes you have to practice to be able to do that. The goal is to get to where you practice this so that when you're in a high-pressure situation, it doesn't matter what's going on around you, you can close your eyes and you can get there. Okay? But it does help to bring in all of those senses. I will say it's amazing sometimes. The other day I walked out I like to check on the weather outside during the school day and get some cool air and see how it looks out there. The other day I walked out there and it was like, the birds were chirping and just sounding so beautiful. So I actually tried to take a video of it and pick up and I was going to send it to Julie, but I didn't send it to you because I could hear on the video, I could hear the dripping from the rain gutter. And then a train comes and you hear the train sound and you can barely hear the bird. But it's weird because when I went out there, my brain was able to eliminate the rain gutter sound. And I did hear the train when it came through, but it was just seemed so, what's the word I'm looking for? Clear, and just right there and all in, and the video didn't even come close to capturing that. But these are things that you can get there in your mind. I can sit there, if I close my mind and think about it, I can hear that same thing again. So our mind is really powerful this way. When you summon that relaxation image, your body chemistry will change and you'll relax. So when you're in a high stressful situation. I mentioned this a second. Yes, Mel?
Talking about the rain, one thing I like about staying in the camper, okay, is when it's raining. Okay, not the fact that it's nice that I'm not getting wet, but I hear the rain on the roof of the camper. But the one thing sound that I don't like to hear is drip, drip, drip. Now that's not as much rain as I hear on the roof, but it's got my attention.
Yes, well said, Mel. And actually, rain, I think there is something very peaceful and relaxing about the rain sounding on that. But it's not so peaceful and relaxing when you hear the drip, drip. And I'm not going to say what Proverbs has to say about that. If you don't know, if you know, you know. Okay. Anyways, I like to have fun while we do, right? So I mentioned this last week, but Dr. Divert's suggestion, stoichiometry test. So you're in this time crunch pressure, and it's an amazing thing. If you get a problem right, you start to feel good. Get another problem right, start to feel good. So one of the things I've tried to teach my math students is, if you run into a problem on a test that you don't know, don't just put it to the side, put a question mark, keep rolling, get some right so you're feeling good, because you want to feel good. Hey, if you feel good, you do good, right? If you sit there and you've got question 2 on your math test and it's a stumper and you're just getting, okay, the odds are if you go down that, you're not going to do very well on the next ones. Well, stoichiometry tests, here's the problem. There's only 4 problems on the test. Yeah, 50 minutes, 4 problems, 25 points a pop. You get one, you dump. It's like, okay, if I get everything else perfectly and I miss this, I get a 75. Like, this is where your brain can start going, right? So then everything goes up. And lots of times I just, okay, flip to the back of the test, find one, try not to get it. But sometimes I would do that, and you get down, you got one problem left. You got nowhere else to go to feel good. You only got one problem left, and you don't know what you're not seeing it. You're not seeing it. So Dr. Dybert gave us some good suggestions, and he said, when you're in that, your mental efficiency is dropped big time. So he says, close your eyes, your time crunch, all that. But he said, trust me, close your eyes, and basically get a relaxing image, and your mental efficiency, do it for 1-2 minutes, and your mental efficiency will jump back up and take another run at it. It's just good advice. Actually, it's great. It's not just great stoichiometry test advice. It's great life advice. It works. It really does. And it's really, sometimes to be able to do that, and you think you don't have time, you think, it's actually very helpful. Dr. Dybert was an interesting dude, but it was a good piece. I think he used to read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which is weird, Eastern mysticism garbage, and thought he was a Christian, but didn't believe in creation. Anyways, I don't know why I'm having fun. Energizing image, okay? I'm not going to go through and have you guys close your eyes on each of these, but these are ones you want to get. You want to get a relaxation image. You want to get an energizing image. Something that pumps you up, makes you want to go and keep going, okay? Actually, whenever I go into Matthew's office, he's got, you got some version of, what is it? Is it the one that looks somewhat like this? It's a cheetah. You walk in and it's like, okay, you better be ready to win. That cheetah looking back is like, gives me like winning feelings, okay? Often it isn't sight so much as sound that energizes. So, whether your energizing energy comes from Eye of the Tiger, okay? I'm going old school because I'm old. But, da, 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 da. It's like, yeah, let's go. You can listen to something, okay, we're ready. It's energizing, right? So whatever that is for you, some people it's like jet fighters. Okay, there was in the book talked about a guy in it was the locomotive and the stuff going in. The only thing that really has relevance to me in my life is from reading the story, the little engine that could. Okay, but if you were from that time period where you did more with that, you have to find your own. That's what I'm saying. But there's what are things that picture makes you. It's like there's lots of energy, power. I was thinking about the glorified Christ is an awesome picture in the book of Revelation. And one of the things what was his voice like? What did you say? Yeah, sound of many waters. And I find it interesting, even when the scripture leaves from, your picture of that in your mind might be different than mine. When you picture sound of many waters, what do you hear? Anybody? What did you say? Yeah, I think if I go to Yellowstone and those falls, when they're like there's power there, right? So something along those lines you want to find that to be able to energize you when you need to be able to summon some energy. Vividly recreate the scene and you'll feel it, your physical energy coming up. Finest hour image. When were you most memorably in the ideal performance state? The white moments that we talked about from week 1. Often the most vivid peak performances are those from sports. Whatever your finest hour, recall it in every detail, with every sense, etch it into your consciousness. So sometime, that day, when everything clicked and you were good out of your mind. You were just on everything. Remember that. Like, if you don't remember that, if you ever have one of those again in your life, stop it. Afterwards, freeze. Don't do it. Don't stop in the middle. Okay? Keep going. Enjoy it. Ride it. But then afterwards, you want to go back and freeze frame that and to be able to go back to it, okay, to help you to be able to get there. I have some, it's interesting. This is when I was young, and in Great Falls, I was doing a Bible study with a guy, a young fella. His dad was a pastor, and this young guy we thought was making some progress, but then he went and talked, his dad, and he said, yeah, and the word got back to me that his dad we were gonna meet all together, and the word got back to me that his dad was literally gonna blow us out of the water, ha ha ha. So, none of you guys get literally blow us out of the water? Immersion, and wow, you guys aren't having as near as much fun as I am. But so he couldn't meet one week. They had something going. The next week, I got the flu so bad. I didn't go to school, didn't go to work. And Coop actually lived with me at the time. But this is the window. We got to take it. I was like, let's go. I mean, if we give the guy the flu and he makes it to heaven, that's better than. So let's go. So we went, but I felt crummy. But I prayed and guys, it's made immersion with the Spirit came up, and you guys know sometimes that can be challenging, and it might be the best I ever did. So that's a memory I can go to if I feel crummy sometimes, and the mind starts, when you feel crummy, oh, well, you're not going to be able to, you know how the mind plays games with you. It's like, no, last time I felt like this, I did the best I've ever done. You want to have memories like that in your brain to be able to summon to help you get in the right emotional state to do what needs done for the Lord in any given moment. Imagery truly does control your response to reality. Visualization, another part is use visualization of positive to remove the negative. This is important. You cannot, my brain cannot do two things at the same time. What am I trying to say? You guys know I'm a terrible multitasker in general. But I don't think anybody's brain can actually hold two thoughts at the same time. So, sometime, for the fun of it, well, that's my problem, Mel. Chewing gum at the same time, all that. But for the fun of it, I figured this is better than Solomon's experiments in Ecclesiastes. I haven't wanted to get as drunk as I can, see how smart I can still be in it. I'll pass on that one, thanks, Solomon. But I'll be like, okay, see if I can read the bulletin back while I'm singing the hymn. I'm a strange guy, but these are the kind of things that... Now, I have a hard time with that, but I can do it. But you know what happens? I'm not doing both at the same time. I'm doing one fast, one fast, one fast, one fast. That's the way your brain works, okay? So you can use, if you have a negative thought in your mind, how many of you ever wake up with some song, or you have members of your family that know the songs that drive you crazy, and sometimes just for the fun of it, to see if you actually are practicing mental toughness and keeping your attitude in control, even when other people or circumstances are, did Peter leave? Bummer. Okay. Let it snow. Let it go. Let it go. You are in control of your attitude, Peter. Okay. Thank you for, I think, playing along with me. So, but you ever get a song like that stuck in your head that you don't want that song? There's only one way I know how sometimes to get that out, and that's put a different song in. Okay? So it's the same way, same concept here. There are some people who when they identify their negative influences and give them an image. I haven't really done this much, but the example he gave was there's this accountant, this very successful accountant, but sometimes the people around you that don't work, and everybody has those people around you. You're working, they're not. You're like, your brain's like, we get paid the same amount, or they may even get paid, they're not doing anything. That can put you in the wrong frame of mind pretty quickly, your emotional state. So this lady, she pictured these things as bulldogs, and all these bulldogs yipping and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden they smell meat and they take off and run away. And then she looks over and sees the coworker that's not doing anything and sees a bulldog and starts laughing and has fun. I don't know. I've never really done that, but just figured I'd throw it out there if that's the way your brain works. I do know this. Top athletes use positive imagery to correct their form after a mistake. People, so often, people review film in their life, and what they review, when they review film, they play the mistake over and over and over and over. Wrong. Okay? You need to identify the mistake, but then what you need to play is doing it right. Okay? I mentioned that the Warriors a few years ago, when they were world champs, and all that, they have a bad shooting night. They wouldn't go back and watch when they had bad shooting nights and see what they actually just, one night I remember, and this where it stuck with me, they didn't even have film from that game. They threw that film away. They went and watched film from a game they played great. What are they doing? Reinforcing the right thing. And so this is a beautiful thing, you guys. The technique is to replay the incident mentally, but to change it as if it had happened perfectly. So you ever seen a high jumper in track? So you guys know the way that works in high jumpers, and they have to basically, if you ever see when they're practicing, they get put tape down on the track in certain spots because they got to get their steps perfectly, figure out where they start with their stride length, all that, with their steps perfectly, so when they get there, it's the right takeoff for them to go over that bar. You ever seen them so that's a lot of practice. Steps, they use tape, they get everything down. Okay, you ever seen them right before, like the elite ones, before they actually jump? They close in their eyes. You see them there, yeah. What are they doing? They are doing it mentally right before they go do it. And it's perfect in their mind. That's the way this works. Now, scripturally, guys, this is a beautiful thing. Hasn't Jesus left us an example for us to follow in his steps? Sometimes you make a mistake, you fall short, you take that to the Lord. Okay, Lord, I messed up. Sinned, didn't do this as well as I know you wanted me to. Okay? That's important. Scripture says do that. Now, where are you going to go with that? You're going to rehash, review, over and over? No. What's the picture? Jesus did come in the flesh. And him coming in the flesh, he left us an example for us to follow in his steps. You can find where Jesus did what you want to do in the flesh. And you can work that through. Is it true, guys, that our life is hidden with Christ in God? Is it true that when Christ, who is our life, is revealed? I've heard my dad say this before. You want to know what your past is? Go read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. As a Christian, be careful. Okay? There's certain things when you're not going to go around and say, I am the Son of God. Okay? But can you say, he who sent me is with me? He has not left me alone because I always do the things that are pleasing in his sight. Like, there's things you can take. This is who you are as a Christian. How did Jesus do this? How did this play out? Today, I was just mindful of Zacchaeus. And Jesus sees Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus is really cool in himself. But here Jesus is. He's passing through Jericho. I don't know what's on Jesus' mind when he's not going into Jericho to stay. He's passing through. But while Jesus is passing through Jericho, he still notices other people. He notices people who are looking for him. Like, that's a great example to me. Okay? You can be busy, you can be passing through, and you still care about a person in front of you. Like, these are ways. So sometimes if I didn't do that the way I wanted to, okay? Learn from and then you can go, you have pictures of Jesus that you can stick back in. This is what this looks like into your mind. So the result of this, I got to hurry here. I missed something, but the result of this positive image triggers the same feelings and emotions as if the original had been executed perfectly. This is an amazing thing about the brain. Your brain handles images, whether actually perceived or someone from memory, in much the same way. A Rubik's Cube. Okay? I've never done too much with a Rubik's Cube, but you could show me this. This is a cool thing. Memorize the different colors of the faces. When asked to turn the cube over, it actually takes the same amount of time in your mind to turn it over as it does if you're holding one. because that's the process you go through. It's what your brain goes through to turn it over. Dr. Maxwell Maltz has observed the human brain at its deepest levels cannot distinguish between actuality and something vividly imagined. We can use this to get done what God wants done. Somebody who's asked to imagine themselves running. Okay, I am not the candidate for that now at this point in time in my life, but they've had them do it, hooked them up. There's small but measurable contractions in the muscles used for running just by doing it mentally. Amazing thing. I like this one. Alpine ski racer to electromyograph. That's the thing that measures your muscle contractions. The EMG recordings almost mirrored the course itself. Have you guys ever, on your watch, smartwatch, like done some version of like little interval training or something, and you can go back and just from your heart rate, watching the heart rate, you can tell what you did, right? It basically plots your workout just from looking at the heart rate. This is the same concept, but it's from just imagining and what your muscles, the muscle contractions. They had this alpine ski racer that basically skied this slalom race, and they gave him one, and it almost mirrored the course itself. Emotional responses, of course, are more than minuscule muscular contractions. We already talked about movies, the way that works. And I'm going to just kind of fly through this, but lots of times people don't ask the right questions. The question isn't, hey, what happened? What pitch did you hit the home run on? This guy says the question that should be asked, what did I do to mentally prepare myself? So when that circumstance came, I was able to do that. Because performers are prepared ahead of time. They've seen stuff, they've run through it. We'll keep rolling on this, you'll see in a little bit more. The emotional power of image is so strong that it often overwhelms rational thought. This is true. Dairy Queen Blizzard. I know those things are terrible for you. How many calories in the large? And how they make me feel if I eat one late at night. And somebody starts talking about Dairy Queen Blizzard, and I go, let's all go get a Dairy Queen Blizzard. I go, and I am not going to order a medium or a small because that doesn't make sense economically. Get a large. So I get a large. It overwhelms rational thought because the picture of the Dairy Queen Blizzard, that's probably better than cigarette ads, but I remember when I swept the paint pot as a kid. Okay, anybody remember the Marlboro Man? Outside the paint pot, okay, I would go sweep the paint pot, parking lot, and then I'd wait for somebody to come pick me up. And when I was waiting out there on that backside, there was always a billboard, and it seemed like half the time there was some smoker on that billboard. Because I would remember, I would read the warnings, Surgeon General, whatever it said. I just remember saying, they had to put the warnings on there. But most people aren't reading the warnings. Most people are seeing the picture of Mr. Cool. Okay? Marlboro, I can't even say the word. I don't need to. Okay? We know what happens. People knew it was unhealthy. You can replace, I know cigarettes now isn't one, but you can do the same with alcohol or other stuff. Imagery is often more powerful than logic. We want to develop this to control our life in a positive way. Don't know what's going on with my... Okay, visualization requires the use of the right side of the brain. That's the side of my brain that needs work. I will say, actually, ever since I started trying to figure out how to video edit and to make PowerPoint stuff, it's been good for me because that side of my brain has to work. Okay? If I try to find a picture that actually goes with what I'm communicating, it forces me to use that side of the brain. So it's actually really I've enjoyed the experience from a perspective of an engineer. You're using your entire brain when you have to turn words or numbers into pictures. Some of you are very much wired that way, which is awesome. You have to figure out how to get your pictures into words or numbers. And that's really fun too. Okay. This is the middle ones here are carbons. The outside ones are hydrogens. There are 6 carbons. Anybody know what this is, this linear chain? Just think of the word 6. What's the prefix for 6? Hex. It's hexane. Okay, 6 carbons. And this is usually Usually they're chains, okay? Carbons, hydrogens around them. But, I won't say this guy's name, Friedrich von Kekule, a German chemist who discovered the structure of trimethylbenzene. Okay? He knew this was different. It wouldn't work in any of the linear chains. He could not figure, so one day he's relaxing before the fire, and he's doing that. Weird stuff starts happening. He wasn't smoking anything. The brain's been working on this, okay? And all of a sudden, he see these flames are coming up, kind of little snakes, and then the snake starts turning around and grabbing its own tail. And in that process, he realized, that's the way that's how this works. That's how you can have all these double bonds and this. He's figuring out the structure through visualization. Okay, I know nothing about sewing. Some of you do. I know a hand sewing needle. Where's the hole in that needle? The eye. Yeah, the eye. Thank you. The eye of the needle. It's at the fat end. Okay. How about on a sewing machine? It's at the tip. Okay. The reason is, okay, you got to get. I don't know enough about it, but from what I read in this, you got to get the needle part, the pokey part, going in the thread has to be going in with it at the same time. Okay? So here's what happened. There's a nightmare. The person who developed this, and in this nightmare, it was a little different than Scott's, but it was reach a solution or die at the end of a spear, and that spear that was coming had the eye at its point. Okay? So, some of you guys probably ever, hope this isn't just me, this happened to, had a problem in college. For me, it was a math problem. I go to sleep at night, don't know the answer, wake up the next day, and you know the answer. Your brain does keep working. Well, here, this was a nightmare, but in this visually helped come up with the answer. Point is, visualization's helpful. Point is, Luke, you got to get going. And this thing's not working for me. I don't know what's going on. I am, Jerry. Visualizing ending on time, right on time. Wright brothers, you can tell how often I talk about it, even on Lord's Night. Anyway, Wright brothers visualized a big kite because everybody was trying to envision flight with birds. They've envisioned a kite and invented the airplane. Once you develop visualization techniques, you can deploy them anytime, anywhere. It takes practice, of course. Recall the scene. Okay, you want to have these images in your mind. You want to recall the scene, close your eyes, develop it. Bring in those senses, and one sense at a time. As you become more skilled, you're able to do this even in distracting environments. Successful athletes understand that mental practice is as vital as physical practice. Don't have time for all these examples. I do know some younger person recently texted me and said that they're hurt, so they're not being able to physically perform the way they want to. Are there some things they can do still? Say, yeah, you can, even when you're hurt. Okay, you guys remember this golfer? He didn't go to the golf course for every practice session. Jean-Claude Killy was injured and unable to ski for a race. Obtained films of the giant slalom course, practiced mentally, and won. You can get a lot done through mental practice. Okay? I remember Nick Jacobs years ago walking the motocross course the night ahead of time. What was he doing? He said he was picking out his lines, but he was visually doing that course before he did it. Okay? I was hurt my senior year, ran this aqua jogger, hopped in the pool. That's a story too. Wow. Jerry, am I finishing on time or telling the story? What's the swim center? Yeah, I go down there and I have to put this aqua jogger on, get in the pool, and this thing holds you afloat so you can run in the pool. And oftentimes, what I was doing was this older ladies' water aerobics class, and there's one song that they played every single time. It's one of those songs that you got to get out of your mind. Anyways, but while I'm in there, trying not to listen to the song, my struggle in distance running was sometimes getting out-kicked. Okay, so people sprinting, and beating me in the sprint at the finish line. All I did, I practiced the finish over and over and over and over and over and over again. Now, I'm not really running. I mean, you're doing something. But the mental aspect helped me my senior year. I said I won every race. I didn't win an 800, but that wasn't my specialty. But it helped me with my kick a lot just from the mental aspect of it. These same techniques work with any performance, including presentations. Improve your power of persuasion by switching sides and pretending you're them, asking questions, raising objections, etc. That's what rabbit shooters is, for example. Okay? You run through it, you're there, you're prepared, and it's fun when you know what they do it, they spring it on you. It's like, got that, I know. You visualized it. You know how it's going to go. Okay? Most of the young people are downstairs, so I'll skip the dating advice on this. Visualizing is important, but be ready for it not to go the way you envisioned it in your head. Okay, that's true in life, actually. One thing, sometimes fear holds us back, and sometimes you can visualize, okay, what is the absolute worst scenario that could happen? I do this sometimes. Sometimes I'm afraid to pull the trigger on something. I don't know. Okay, what's the absolute worst? If the absolute worst is something that's very livable, then go for it. Don't worry about it, right? It's helpful to be able to visualize it. Oh yeah, it's not that bad. Absolute worst thing that could happen. So, what's the absolute worst thing that happened? You asked this person for a Bible study. They said no. You weren't Bible studying with them before anyways. You didn't lose a thing. Lots of times in life, guys, I realize things that I'm afraid of doing, and then it's like, you lose absolutely nothing by going for it. There are some things you lose going for, so you need to think this through. Okay, sometimes you'll say, yeah, I don't think I want to. Use visualization as a memory jogger. My mom made me do this a lot in my life. Some of you guys know Joseph Shanahan better than me. We're wired a lot that way, the same. And my mom would say, and this, my kids get a kick out of this still, but my mom would, because I forgot stuff a lot, and I couldn't find where. Well, it's okay. Retrace your steps and go back through it in your mind. And you can do it if you retrace your steps. To this day, okay, I'll go out to my car, get in, sometimes I'll come back. Okay? And the reason is my mom would tell me along these lines, like, ask yourself on the way out the door, what am I supposed to have? And I'll get out there. I ask myself on the way out the door. By the time I get to my car, I realize something I'm supposed to. Visualization helps a lot in a lot of things. The ultimate power of visualization lies in your self-image. People tend to live up to their own images of themselves. We understand this in the spiritual realm, guys. Okay? God has given us a picture of who we are. That's the picture we want. I will challenge you again. The world is always going to give you a warped picture, and really a loser picture in one form or another. The world's always going to try to chip you down, you want to be in this to know who you are. And I will say, improving self-image is the key to coaching any sport, managing any group of people. Jesus builds up the church through his word. We get to see Jesus in glory. I got a couple things I want you to think about. You can visualize the kind of family that you want. And and for a second, actually, I'll do this because we don't have a lot of time. You can visualize the kind of congregation that God wants us to have, that we want to have. So give me one word that comes to your mind of what our congregation should be. Anybody, give me a word. Fellowship. What? Friendly. Enthusiastic. Convicted. Those are all good. What in your mind, you got to see it to be there. We want to see it individually. We want to see it as a congregation. Okay? When we are here, and this isn't just visualizing, but you visualizing and you pray for the things that God wants. Okay? Those things come into existence. It's the way God works. So when we participate in that individually, okay, and we're thinking about, and we're seeing this congregation, some of the things, I had some of the same words you guys did, a couple other, in a congregation that's into the Word. We're people of the book. We love God's word. Evangelistic. Okay? A thriving school. We've had that before. We want to get there again. These are things to see in our minds. to pray for. If you don't see it, you won't be it. If you see it, the me I see, the us we see is who we will be. It's the way God has put those things into practice. And that's a scriptural thing. I think about the letters to the churches in the book of Revelation. And Philadelphia is my favorite. There's only two that are completely, get only good things said. One of them is Philadelphia. But there's this word, Jesus says, I will open a door that no one can shut. When you love, that's the picture I have of this congregation. I want you to join with me in that picture. And again, there might be some aspects of that are a little different in you, but scripturally, what this looks like, who we are, what we want to be, and have fun along the way. We know the new creation concept. In the end, this is what the book even says. In the end, what you see is more than what you get. What you see is what you can become. And with the Lord's help, guys, what we see is what we do become.